Welcome to the Finding Your Soul Purpose Masterclass. I am so excited that you're here. I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous. I always get so nervous before masterclasses. It's wild. And I think it's because in a course, if I forget something, I can just add it to the next module. But in a masterclass, like I gotta deliver what I need to deliver all in one go, and hopefully I do it properly. But I'm sure what needs to be said will be said, and I can surrender and trust. Thank you so much for being here. For all of you who are live, I'm so excited to be here with you live. We've got like 250 people signed up, so most of them are catching the replay. But regardless, I'm really excited to share this information with you. And first of all, though, I just want to say I am so fucking jazzed that we are all here. Like, yes, that we're all here on this call, but more importantly, that we are all here together at this level of consciousness together. It's so freaking exciting to me. Like, the crazy thing is that we all know each other in other realms. Like, we're like all friends, we're connected, we're part of the same mission, we know each other, but here on earth we've forgotten. And we've come down here and we've spread ourselves far and wide across the globe with the intention of eventually coming together and remembering and reestablishing the telepathic network of communication and lighting up the grid. And we're here. I'm just so fucking grateful and joyful and jazzed. And I love you. And I wish I could hug you all. Oh my God. I feel like I've been waiting a long time for this. But other people have been waiting for longer. So, but let's light this grid the fuck up, my friends. Let's light it up. So, a brief overview of this masterclass. It is my intention, letting a couple people in. It is my intention to unlock your knowing and activate the shit out of your consciousness, basically, to the best of my abilities in this masterclass. I really want you to come away with a whole new level of clarity around who you really are and what you are here to do, like why you came to Earth. And so in this masterclass, we're going to talk about what soul purpose even is, because there are a lot of misunderstandings around it. I certainly had a lot of misunderstandings, and I've been schooled by life and the Akashic Records. So not only what soul purpose is, but like what we're even really seeking to understand when we ask that question, because sometimes we don't even know. We're just asking that question, but there's a deeper, more specific thing that we're really looking for, and we've lumped it under the category of soul purpose, and that just muddies the water too. So when we can ask the right question, then we can get the most satisfying answer. And we'll go into the importance of finding your soul purpose and what kind of difference that makes in life. We're going to talk about the difference between soul purpose, soul mission, soul work, and soul code, because we often lump those all together under the banner of soul purpose, and they are definitely different things, all related, but different. And that muddies the waters further. And I'll share my journey with you, my journey of finding my soul purpose and what my soul purpose is, as an example to help you find yours. And we'll talk about common blocks that come up for people. And then, of course, I'll share tips and practices to support you in finding your soul purpose. And at the end, we'll do some Q&A. So please post your thoughts and your reflections and your questions in the chat as we go. Sometimes I'll pop in and I'll, peek and weave that into what I'm saying. And a lot of it I'll just save to the end, and we'll go back and read your questions. So anything that you want to ask, just pop it in there. Okay. So understanding soul purpose. What is soul purpose? Really, it's just like in the biggest, most general definition of what soul purpose is why you are here, why you were born. And that is often what people are asking. But a lot of the time, people are calling it soul purpose and they're actually asking, like, what is my soul mission or my life mission? Or they're very often asking, what is my soul work? And then there is something called a soul code that people aren't usually asking about, but is like, this is what people use. When people are asking what their soul purpose is, what they're really asking is about my soul work and my soul mission, usually. But it's really their soul code that they want to know about. Like they want to know the weavings of like the genetic template. It's almost like the DNA template of your own code, your own soul, everything that you are, all the pieces that weave together. Like that's kind of what people want to know, but they don't call it soul code. They call it soul purpose, but they're really asking about their career. They're really asking about like how to make money or what they're really here to do. It all gets so confused. So, just briefly, I'll sort of explain the difference between all of these so you can kind of understand and see, even in your own like inquiries and wonderings to yourself about your soul purpose, how you might be jumbling these different things together. So, like I said, soul purpose is the overarching reason for your incarnation on earth. Or I suppose you could say the overarching reason for your existence as a soul, but I feel like that's just a whole different question. Most human beings are asking, like, why am I here? Because, like, sometimes it's cool, and a lot of times it's bullshit here. So, why am I here? Why? What is it? Like, there's got to be some reason why. And then life mission or soul mission, I tend to call it soul mission, but whatever. It's like the specific mission, the specific like goals, the objectives that you are meant to achieve in this life. Like it's more of a doing thing. Like soul purpose is a being. Why am I being? Why am I in existence? Why am I incarnated here? Why do I exist? And soul mission is like, and what am I supposed to do? But they are two different things. Like if you ask soul purpose and you really, you're vibrationally understanding what soul purpose is, and you're asking the question, why do I exist? Oh my God, the answer in the Akashic Records is very different from the question of what is my soul mission? And then soul work is the sacred work that you do that is paid. So it's like your work, your job, your career, that is an expression of your soul code. And then your soul code is the unique blueprint of your soul's characteristics and qualities. So, a lot of the time when people are asking about their soul purpose, they're also asking without verbalizing it to themselves, what are my gifts? Like what makes me special? Like what are my talents? So we lump like everything under the question of soul purpose. And 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 when we're not aware that that's what we're doing, we ask the question that is actually like a million different questions. And we get a very confusing, muddy, vague answer. And then we feel like more frustrated because we're not getting the information that we're seeking. So, to tease it apart like this, I personally have found is so helpful. Like in an Akashic reading, if somebody asks me what their soul purpose is, my job as a reader is to feel into the vibration of that question and help to tease apart, what are you really asking? What do you really want to know? Because each of those threads has a different answer, and all of those answers are very important. And so when all of those threads are woven together, that's what creates our soul code. It's like all of these, if you could say it's the 12 strand DNA code that we always hear about. It's like all these facets of ourselves. So, all that being said, we'll go into a deep dive in all of those. But for now, that's like the brief summary. And all of that being said, like there's a reason that what is my soul purpose is one of the two most frequently asked questions that I get in Akashic readings. So the main one is soul purpose, and the very close runner up, maybe like tied for first place, is who are my spirit guides. And The soul purpose question, it makes so much sense to me why people want to know this, because it's really important. It really makes a very big difference when we know what our soul purpose is. It just, it's like everything makes sense. Even the shitty things make sense. And they still are shitty, but at least it makes sense. And so you can like wrap your mind around it, like you can find a degree of peace even within the shittiness. And then also when it's like good times, like those things become amplified. It just all fits into place. So that's really what we want to know. We want like a million pieces of the puzzle so that it can chunk all come together and we can see like the picture and it all fits into place. So knowing your soul purpose really like it leads to a degree of personal fulfillment and happiness that, without wanting to be hyperbolic, I really feel like it is unparalleled. There is It's an internal source of fulfillment that creates joy, and it's unmatched by the things that we manifest externally. So partnership, even divine partnership, even our children, um like obviously, I mean, we all know that money doesn't buy happiness, right? So you can be like very, very good at making a lot of money and have no idea what your soul purpose is and not feel fulfillment and satisfaction. I would say that that inner sense of remembering who you are and why you're here and what you're here to do is so, like, it's unwavering through all the seasons of life. Whereas sometimes we can go through hard times within our partnership, or hard times within our relationship with our children, or whatever, and so while we get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment and happiness from those, there's also tension because those are actual real people and it gets complicated. Whereas our soul purpose, knowing it just lives inside of you and you're aware of it all the time, and it completely like colors the lens through which you are viewing and experiencing reality. And then obviously the main reason that people want to uncover their soul purpose is because it provides clarity and a sense of direction in life. And it really, it's very hard psychologically to feel like you're aimlessly just floating through life and just kind of on Groundhog Day. Or if you're somebody that's like averse to Groundhog Day, like I am, then you'll just create drama just to like change it up. Um, but it's still this feeling of aimless drama, right? And not necessarily like crazy toxic drama, but just like, oh, I've manifested this, whatever, like dramatic thing, so that there's some variation in my life, but I'm just doing it because I feel aimless without knowing what my soul purpose is. I have no sense of direction. And it's like, it's hard for us to sit in that space. And I'm sure to an extent, there is like organic periods in life where you're meant to go through that unknown and that undefined void. But I do not believe that we're supposed to be experiencing it for such a prolonged state as most of us do in this society anyway. I'm always speaking like from the perspective of the Western society because that's where I am. And I really don't have enough experience in any other culture to be able to speak from that. So it provides clarity and a sense of direction in life that we all want. And it's just like an anchor point that allows you to move forward and kind of know what your destination is. And then it provides improved relationships and connections with the people in your life, both the people that you love and strangers, because when you're anchored in your soul purpose, it's like it's a lot easier to navigate the complexities of human relationships, where, like, first of all, in the good seasons, you know what you are bringing to the table and you know what you're contributing, and so like it kind of shields you even from being parasited on by, like, people with narcissistic traits and things like that. Like, your worth when you know your soul purpose. And also it sets you up to see, like, in the inevitable times where other people in our lives are triggering us, you kind of know, like, it's like we can always come back home to like, yeah, but who am I? What am I here to do? And that is always independent of somebody else. It might involve others, but it's always like within us. It belongs to us solely and completely. And so it becomes, yeah, like this almost like this navel point. It's like the belly button, that anchors everything in and that everything spirals off of that beautiful soul purpose. So, and it's 222 here. So, like extra emphasis, the belly button, okay? It's the navel. So, your relationships become better because you become more stable within yourself. You can be more intimate with other people. You can see people with greater clarity. Like, we can't see another person beyond the level that we're willing to see within ourselves. So when you see deeply within yourself and you can acknowledge your soul purpose, it like I don't know, like squeegees off your third eye or something, like whatever, clear sense you have that allows you to see, so to speak, connect with, perceive, understand another person at like a very deep level and not just like see their potential in a wounded way, but see their blueprint and like relate to them accordingly, which only helps because then they like are more likely to rise up to meet that way that you're relating to them rather than kind of relating to each other in really toxic ways where we're only seeing like a surface level of the other person and then we're just getting more projecting all over them and getting mad about it. And all of this stems off of the bonus of knowing your soul purpose, which is just like enhanced personal growth and self-awareness. You don't just find your soul purpose and then like magically, oh, now I know what my soul purpose is and I have that one piece of information and forevermore now I just know it. And it's like a constant unfolding and uncovering of more layers and more facets in the most exciting and exhilarating way. Like it feels good. It's like, oh, holy shit, I carry those codes. Oh my God, I actually am here to do this. It's like you see more as you're able to see more or understand more as you're able to understand more of yourself. And really, again, like that connection to self is the basis of like a happy life and healthy relationships. It's like the Ace of Cups card in the tarot. Like your cup overfloweth just from yourself. And from there, like you're just such a like turned on contribution to this whole entire realm and contribution to your relationships. And and you just feel that and know that about yourself. And it makes you feel so good. And you know that like walking around every day, you're like aware that you are, yeah, you are contributing. I was going to say you're like a gift, and you are a gift. You are such an exquisite gift. I'm so glad you're here. I would not want the world to be without you and the codes that you are sharing. But sometimes it can be hard for us to take that on and see ourselves as a gift. It feels like egotistical. So you can understand yourself as a contribution. You are contributing. And all of this just makes us like love ourselves more and love life more. It's just an unfolding of remembering more and more and more of who you really are and what you're here to do. And it allows you like not only to see the hard times that you've been through a new lens where everything makes sense, but also to see all your fuck ups through a new lens so that you are not like you can find the gold. You can still acknowledge like, yeah, sometimes we really did fuck up, but there's gold in there. It was not just a complete waste. There's something to be extracted and integrated within self and shared with the world. And then you also are able to much more rapidly transmute blocks and pain because you know where you're going. You know why these things are happening. It just becomes so much more clear. And as such, you constantly rise into higher timelines for yourself. So, what causes us to struggle so much to find our soul purpose? The first thing I think is like basically like misunderstandings, misconceptions that we have around soul purpose. So I mean, I feel like it's still such a fringe topic. Like, I was Googling it before just to see what kind of questions, people ask on Google. Um, and it was really funny. There was a question like, is it soul purpose or soul purpose? Like SOUL or SOLE? And I clicked on it to see what the like top answer was. And the top answer was soul purpose, SOUL, incorrect. Like sole purpose, correct, SOLE. And I just thought that was so funny because it reminded me, like, I'm surrounded by amazing people like you in conversations like 98% of the time. So I sometimes forget how like in the margins these topics still are. They're very fringe. Um, and so there, first of all, a big misconception is the SOLE purpose. Like the biggest misconception is that there is no soul. And I got to speak into this because I know there are a lot of people who come into my world who are just fresh, brand newly awakening. And all of this stuff can feel so freaking confronting to our previous like perceptions of reality and our previous paradigm through which we've operated in the world. And there's a lot of fear of being, like woo woo or like weird or a hippie or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that stuff. And so that even causes us to push away the concept of soul and almost disconnect from that part of ourselves, especially if we haven't had a direct personal experience of remembering any past life or having any kind of bleed through of those other lifetimes, then it feels like, oh, it's just something I hear other people talk about, but I don't even know if it's really real. And we keep ourselves on the fence and we don't like fully commit, like fully dive into this exploration and allow it to alchemize us. And then there are also myths and misconceptions that, like, I'd say the main one is like that soul purpose is tied to like how you make money. I know that was a really confounding one for me. Very, very confusing. And, there's a big reason that we tend to think that it's obviously presented that way. And there's like so much damage around the topic of money, um, so much distortion around it. And then we also obviously live in a false matrix financial system where we have to like whatever, like pay a lot of money just to exist. So there's a lot of that confuses the topic. But like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Soul. It's like a Disney Pixar movie Soul, and I think it came out in 2020. If you haven't seen it, 10 out of 10 recommend. So cute, so good. Um, and it like leaves you with some clarity, but not the whole picture. So there's this main character, Joe Gardner, and he just like, lives and breathes jazz. He just loves jazz. He's a jazz pianist, and he's just always spent his adulthood like trying out to join like a jazz quartet or some kind of jazz ensemble. And he's had so many like I don't know, whatever rejections, I guess, and then finally he gets a gig. Finally he gets his break. And then he dies. Well, he doesn't fully die, like his body's in a coma, but his soul goes to the great beyond. And then he's like, what? No, I gotta get back. I have this gig. And he kind of busts through the dimensions and lands in the great before, which is where all the spirit babies live. When I was watching that movie, I was like, oh, that's where I'm tuned into. I'm not like a stellar medium, but I'm so good with spirit babies. And I was like, oh, because they're in two different places. Okay. Anyways, then he gets hooked up with this soul that doesn't want to incarnate at all. And there ensues and unfolds the whole story of the exploration of soul purpose. And at the end, Joe Gardner has kind of realized that there's so much like the being part of being a human is also part of the soul purpose, but the final message is kind of that that's all that our soul is here for, and that there's not really anything to do. And it's even kind of like made light of and laughed at the end, that there's like a soul purpose. That's so funny, you humans. And I feel like even that's a misconception, that like there's the misconception that there's something you're here to do for money, and there's the misconception that you're just here to be. It's like a combination of both. There's a contribution you're supposed to make in this incarnation, whether it is paid or unpaid, and it's usually a combination of both. And then there's also things that you're meant to receive, right? Like there is the being, there's all the experience, all of the alchemy, all of the learning, all of the healing, and both of those count. And it only makes sense because there is like the masculine action principle and the feminine reception principle, and both of those exist not only within us but within the entire universe. The whole universe is coded with those two principles. So we kind of, as I said before, we the biggest misconception is that we tend to lump all of the questions under the, like, what is my sole purpose? But really what we're asking about is like, how do I make money while I'm here? Like, this is bullshit. How do I pay my bills in a way that makes me not want to like poke my eyes out, essentially? And also like, what what can I make of myself in a career though too? Like, yes, I want to pay the bills, and I also want to like, do something with myself. And what are my gifts? And what is the meaning of life? And like, how do I be happy? And who am I? And you know what I mean? We're actually asking all these questions, but we're saying, what is my full purpose? And so if you're asking me in an Akashic reading, I can help you tease it apart and we can get answers. But if you're just generally asking, or like trying to ask your guides, or trying to ask the tarot cards or the oracle cards, or going into the Akashic records for yourself, if you don't understand all of these different questions you're asking, and you ask, what is my sole purpose? You're way more likely to get a very vague and general answer that kind of encompasses all of those things. And it would be the annoying kind of thing that you would find on Google anyway, which is like, your sole purpose, one's sole purpose is to bring light into the world through your unique gifts and talents while, experiencing all of the lessons and the sensory pleasure and experiential blah 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 that life has to offer. Do you know what I mean? Like some like vague ass shit that just is like, okay, like, how do I apply that? What do I do with it? So those are the misconceptions, the biggest misconceptions. But then there are the blocks to finding our soul purpose. And misconceptions are kind of a block, but there are other blocks like fear and self-doubt are huge ones, as always, as it has to do with anything in the spiritual realm, and rightly so. Like, fear that you're getting it wrong is not a bad thing. It's just that when you constantly automatically defer to it from an unintegrated trauma response, then it really starts to run your life. Doubt is not a bad thing. These two mechanisms keep us safe. In the absence of fear and doubt, we can fall for like cult leaders. We can like completely go off the deep end and join crazy fucking spiritual movements that are completely ungrounded, and like sell all of our stuff and try to join an intentional community like created by a bunch of unhealed people. Like, fear and doubt are our friends. They are our friends. They are like wise advisors that we want to listen to and not make an enemy of. And they are not here to call the shots. They're simply advising us. We take it into consideration, and then we proceed with all of the information. So, fear, mostly around the question of soul purpose, fear and self doubt go hand in hand, because it's kind of like, number one, I would say the general fear is, first of all, what if there's no such thing as a soul? Or what if this is all made up and I'm being fooled? Or, do you know what I mean? Like something vaguely like that. Like, we aren't always fully articulating our fears to ourselves in words, but it's like a general feeling of like, what if this is all bullshit and there's nothing there? And then there's a fear of like, well, what if there is something there and I just can't connect to it? And that spirals down a whole road of like, oh my God, Amy said, like, So much happiness through soul purpose. What if I can't find it? And then there's like the fear too of like, what if you find that your soul purpose is something that you didn't bargain for, or like your human self feels like you didn't bargain for? Or what if it's something that feels like way too big to fulfill? Or what if it feels like, oh, that? you know? So we have a lot of those fears. And they kind of like the way that fear blocks us is that it like interrupts the process before we actually get there. So, for example, I'll take a really tangible example. Let's say I've been given the opportunity to travel internationally several times, and I never given that opportunity. I can tell there's like a portal I've got to walk through because it kind of scares me. I don't love traveling, especially now that I have kids. I don't love it. Not by air, anyways, which would be required for these journeys. So, fear, if I listen to my fear, then like it has a cutoff point where it won't even let me imagine, or it prefers that I will not imagine beyond its cutoff point so that that doesn't manifest, it doesn't come true. So it interrupts the whole like process of my like mental tuning into what it is. And so, in terms of me and traveling being a very grounded example, it's like I don't even get past a certain point of walking myself through what it might look like to take one of those trips if I listen to my fear. So, on a psychic level or like examining soul purpose, the way it works is that you let yourself imagine it a little bit and then you kind of bump up against some vague wall of like resistance and you probably don't have words for it, but it's probably something like I already articulated, like what if this is all bullshit, or what if I can't find it, or what if it's something that I like I'm not prepared for or feels too big, or what if it's something that feels like, oh, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And so then we just like hit this wall and then we kind of let ourselves get distracted, or we come out of our exploration or whatever, and we don't return to it. Or when we do return to it, we only ever make it to that checkpoint. We don't move beyond the fear. And fear is just like a guardian at the gateway of that checkpoint, being like, your life could change if you go beyond this point. Do you want that? Are you ready for that? But fear is a little intense. So sometimes fear will really try to freak us out. But that's what happens. That's how it blocks us. And then self-doubt is very similar because it is along the lines of the fear, what if I can't figure this out? Or what if I can't find the answer? But it's a little bit farther down the line where you start to get information and you're like, I don't know, it's like it can't be that, or probably not that, or like, especially if your sole purpose is big, um, like you understand the depth of the value, like of what you're providing. And I mean, everybody is providing so much value. But if you start to understand that your sole purpose is to embody like a higher level of your power, then it can be really hard for us to accept that because we're so programmed with like doubt around ourselves, and it feels like, oh, like I must be making this up, or I must be whatever. Or this happens a lot for people when they don't know their psychic abilities, because they get the information but then they don't know, like, it like a lot of the time it comes through claircognizant download, or it's so integrated in who you are is the point. Like you don't even have to be psychic to figure it out, but we doubt it and we brush it off. So again, we cut ourselves off before it can actually like the whole thing can unfold. We start to see the first little like leaves unfurling off the sprout of this line of inquiry, and we're like, oh, it can't be that, or like, I don't know, that's probably not that. And we don't even write it down. We don't record it anywhere. We just dismiss it. And then it's like we pulled up the little sprout and it's gone. And we have to start all over again and grow that little sprout. The Ideally, what we would do is we would just let ourselves explore the pieces that come through, the pieces that are reflected back to us by our lives, and the pieces that intuitively come through to us. So then other blocks are like basically like a lack of self-awareness and a lack of connection to inner self. And I feel like probably this is not a primary block for the people who have signed up for this masterclass or the people in my audience at large, because I just like, I feel like you wouldn't vibe with me if you were not on the path of cultivating like self-awareness and a connection to your inner self. But obviously, like, just in extrapolating and looking at people in our lives, like, holy moly, I'm sure we can all just select a whole crew of people from our personal lives who are so disconnected from their soul purpose and they're miserable about it. And they're lacking self awareness and they are lacking like self reflection. For example, I had this boyfriend, it was the one that I met, or no, the one I was with before I met Alex. Um, oh, it was rough. I mean, he was like, whatever. He's a wonderful human being, just very, in the matrix. And he hated his job so much that he would wake up he would have insomnia, first of all, chronically, all the time, just like dread to going to work the next day. And then he would wake up periodically at 4 a.m. with a migraine, vomiting in the toilet. And he got migraines all the time. And because I am psychic, but I didn't know it at the time, but like I just thought everybody would know this about him, but I could just so clearly see that it was because he was doing something so out of alignment with his soul purpose. So, so significantly out of alignment. And like his body was just rejecting it in the loudest way it possibly could. And then obviously he was making awful lifestyle choices as a result, like drinking pop, eating a ton of candy, playing World of Warcraft all the time, just being like weird and disconnected. And like that's basically why we ended up breaking up. And then the relationship was going nowhere because when you're so disconnected from yourself, how can you possibly actually be with somebody else? Like somebody like me, furthermore, who even if I was only awake to the degree that I was awake at the time, I'm also a Scorpio. So like I'm just not here for the surface level shit. But like even for somebody else who is here for the surface level shit, like you can't really be with somebody else when you're not with yourself. And so a lot of people in our lives, probably not anybody here, but possibly to some degree, like we're so disconnected from our like ourselves and our awareness of ourselves that it blocks us from understanding our soul purpose. And P.S., his soul purpose was so fucking obvious and clear. Like he loved nature, loved being in nature. He should have just been an outdoor guide and like an outdoor exploration guide, period. I could have told him in 2 seconds. I didn't even read the Akashic Records at the time. It was just so obvious. That's what I'm saying. You do not have to be psychic to know what your soul purpose is. We just have all these weird blocks that prevent us from connecting to it. And then the main reason that he was so miserable and had these blocks is because of societal expectations and conditioning, which we all have to deal with. It is freaking annoying, but it's part of our soul purpose. The reason we are here is to see it and like go against the grain, like point our compass in a different direction. And so, you know, there's so much emphasis put on the need to make money because we need to make money. Like I'm not pretending that we don't. I need to pay my bills, y'all. I need to pay my bills. So do you. That is just, it is what it is. Freaking annoying, but also like that's part of what we're here to recode and transmute as well. So we can bring in a new paradigm. But in the process of doing this, there's all this like conditioning, like emphasis around money and like what it means to be successful, and like all of that shit gets so confused in our perception of like who we actually are and what we're here to do with this life. And so we're trying to like interpret soul purpose through that, like all the layers of that gunky crap that isn't even real anyways. And if you don't know that it's not real, and you're constantly like back and forth at odds with yourself, like on one hand being like, but I feel like there's something more. And on the other hand, being like, but I was brought up in a materialist society. And what if all this spiritual shit is just nonsense? And like, and you're like constantly at odds with yourself. And like, oh God, really what I want to do is make like exquisite transcendental art that just like blows people's minds and like is almost like a psilocybin trip all on its own. Um, Versus like, oh, but what does it actually mean to be successful? And how do I do that? How do I fund it? How do I make money? It's just like so freaking complicated. And yet, the truth of soul purpose is like hilariously simple. So, you are a star seed. I say that with the most confidence. I used to always say, like, well, I don't know, like, I don't ever want to project a label onto anybody that doesn't feel like it resonates. So of course, don't take on that label just because I say it. Understand that what I'm really like, read the energy of what I'm trying to actually say, that I'm using the word star seed to describe. But basically, you are a star seed, or potentially you are an earth star being. So you are like, you carry the original template from this earth, from the original beings that were seated here to live here. And you are here to raise the frequency, heal the distortion, dissolve the illusion, and recode the simulation while you light up the grid with all the others who are doing so of this beautiful organic matrix. That is your soul purpose. So if you're trying to understand and find your soul purpose through the lens of finding your way to fit into this damaged society through like, what kind of work am I supposed to do, or what am I supposed to do while I'm here, whatever, like you won't find it, because that's not your purpose. Your purpose is not to fit into this damaged society. Your purpose is to alchemically dissolve and recreate society. So then the question becomes, how am I here to do it? And in what ways am I already doing it? When you figure out what you are here to do and how you're already doing it, you can take your dimmer switch and start turning it all the way up and radiate your light at like maximum wattage. So like your codes are just like emanating off of you in all directions, literally blessing this reality, because that's the truth of it. That's really what's actually happening. And like the newborns are evidence of this. I can't say the newborns taught me this, because I already knew it. I had to remember as a human, but the newborns like helped me to remember, because newborns are so fucking beautiful. They literally like just light up the whole entire space that they're in. They're a complete blessing. I know that there are awful circumstances on earth that make having a newborn not always ideal, and people don't always deal with it in the best way. But broadly speaking, newborns are a complete gift. And what do? Nothing. They cry, they eat, they poop, they exist. It doesn't matter. It's their existence. Their existence. Oh my God. And their dimmer switches all the way up. And like, when a newborn like smiles, those first gas smiles, whatever, those like where their face is making like trying out the grimaces, and you catch a smile and you're like melt, die into a giant puddle, because they're just like so radiant as they are. And you are still that. You have just had all this distorted shit lumped on top of you that prevents you from seeing and fully radiating those beautiful codes. And what happens in this reality, because there's so much density, is like we're born with our light switch turned all the way up, the dimmers all the way up, and then progressively it like lowers and lowers and lowers until at some point, like for a lot of people, at whatever point, varying points depending on the person's journey, the dimmer switch is like all the way down, where it's like, how there are some lights, they don't ever fully turn off, like there's still light flowing through them, but the dimmer switch is off. It's like that. So you're still radiating your codes, but they're like glowing in a very quiet, subdued way. Whereas when you figure out like who you really are, what you're here to do, how you're already naturally doing it, and what you can do to amplify it, it just like it turns all the way back on and it feels so fucking good. Okay, so I will try to quickly take you through my journey to finding my soul purpose so you can kind of see what I mean, how it all unfolds, and how you do not even need to be psychic. You just need to be tuned into yourself and tuned into life. Okay. So, my soul purpose, primarily as it is for, I would say, all of us, is to spread codes. I have my own specific codes to spread. At this time, so most of my codes are consciousness codes, creation codes, like everything that I'm already talking about all the time anyway. I also have divine mother codes, like there's all these other things that I don't necessarily forward face with, but like the point is I have codes inside of me that are um like by codes I mean frequencies that are in alignment with the truth of any given theme. So for me, it's consciousness. It is like creatorship and understanding manifestation and the holographic matrix and how all this works and all the dimensions and blah, 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 blah. And also like frequencies that resonate in alignment with the truth of like divine mother energy and, that kind of stuff. So my sole purpose is primarily to spread codes. That's the broadest overarching understanding. And at this time, I mainly spread codes through my voice. But the way that I really work is that when I'm fully optimized, I radiate codes through my eyes. I radiate them through my voice, through my hands, and through my heart. So those are like sort of the portals for me where the codes come out of my body. You don't have to know that stuff. And I certainly didn't know that stuff right away. Like this is what I mean is you just get on the track of understanding your soul purpose and you get more understanding and more understanding and more understanding. So now I know that about myself, that in the right situation, I radiate codes through my eyes, through my voice, through my hands, and through my heart. And those codes are like healing, illusion dissolving frequencies of truth. In my 20s, I didn't know this, and I was a hot mess, a hot, hot mess. Such a mess. So lost. So fucking empathically raw and unshielded. And I had no idea, didn't even know the term empath, didn't even know the concept of shielding, totally thought I wasn't psychic, could barely function, totally thought I was a loser. Plus, being a starseed, I this is what I'm saying. We carry codes of truth, and those codes do not fit into the peg holes of this distorted society. And we're not supposed to fit. We are not a cog in the machine. We're not meant to be a cog. But when we are, I don't know, I was going to say at a certain age, but it doesn't really matter. It's not an age thing. At a certain point in our lives, we feel this tremendous pressure to blend in and fit in because safety, like there's safety in fitting in, there's survival in fitting in, there's community, like there's like less loneliness, right? So we kind of want to fit in. We are very community-based creatures. But if fitting in means that you have to fit into like a distorted template, then there's like often this frustrating period of like feeling like you're a loser and gaslighting yourself or just wondering what's wrong with you or why you can't be happy or why you can't be grateful. You have so many great things. Why are you still unhappy? It's because there's something deeper. There's something realer about yourself. And yes, you've like achieved like these certain things, or maybe you were born with these certain things or whatever that yes, you can totally be grateful for. And there's not something wrong with you that you don't fit into this distorted template. But I thought there was. I totally thought I was a loser. And at the same time, though, I just had this deep sense that there's something more than what society is offering. That there's like a deeper level to reality. There is a greater reason for my being here. But I didn't know what it was for all the above mentioned reasons. As a 2-year-old, I remember that I knew I was here to have babies and work with babies in pregnancy, in birth, in infancy. And like, I just knew it. As a 2-year-old, like the self doubt had not kicked in yet. So I just knew it. I had no vocabulary for it, but it was a knowing. And then when I was about 8 or 10, I would sometimes imagine myself standing in front of large crowds and speaking from my heart. And with the power of my words, I would break the spell of violence and hatred that had infected everyone. And they would stop and remember the truth and like put down their weapons and love each other. So this is like the daydreamy imaginings of like roughly 8 or 9 year old or 10-year-old Amy. Which was me tapping into my future timelines and my higher self. But I had no real vocabulary for it. I had no context. And it really just felt like my imagination, but it also felt like a deep knowing, like it stuck with me. It rang true in my heart when I would see that vision, but I didn't know what to make of it. And then the real confusion started when I was a teenager, as I'm sure it did for so many of us. And I was just constantly presented with the question of like, what are you going to do for money? What are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do when you graduate? What are you going to make of yourself? That kind of thing. And like, even the what are you going to do for money and what are you going to make of yourself? Like, those two questions were presented together often as though the two are inherently intertwined. And it created so much confusion and illusion and misunderstanding in me that it obscured my ability to see my soul purpose, even though I'm just exuding it all the time. It's in me, it is me. So through my 20s, I wondered and I wondered, but it was all entangled with the feeling of like scarcity around money and what am I going to do to pay my bills and like, self-worth issues and the pressure to perform and the pressure to make people proud and how do I fit in and where do I belong and what are my gifts and why don't I feel truly seen and what the fuck is wrong with this world and what the fuck is wrong with me and what am I supposed to do? But I would say that it was the money thing that really threw me off track because periodically I could see myself, I could see my gifts, and I could see the effect that I was having on people. And I could understand the value of that. But those were sort of just interwoven in my everyday life. It wasn't anything I was offering as a paid service. So I wasn't necessarily getting paid for them, but like I could see my value sometimes and get glimpses of that part of my soul purpose, but the money question really confused me for a long time. Like, what am I supposed to do while I'm here? And it wasn't just what am I supposed to do as my contribution, my sacred contribution. It was like, what am I supposed to do as my sacred contribution? How does it fit into society? How do I make money? How do I make people proud? Like all of that kind of stuff. And then in my very early 30s, I got accepted into midwifery school. So in my 20s, I studied art. And that was definitely like in alignment with my soul purpose. And I loved it so much. And that's how you know you're in alignment with your soul purpose, because you're fucking happy and you love what you're doing. And but because I had all this money wounding when I graduated, like I had no idea how I could possibly, I was a single mother by then, how I could possibly like pay for the life of my son and myself with like as an artist. So then in my early 30s, I got accepted into midwifery. I had worked as a doula and a nanny before that. So I was trying to follow, like, yes, I love babies, I love children, like, I love pregnancy and birth, but I still had a lot of money wounding. And I got into midwifery, and my sort of like all of my lower chakras relaxed and my nervous system relaxed because that was going to be a career. And I would make like $70,000 a year. I could barely fathom that kind of money and be helping people. It seemed like the answer, the absolute answer. And in a way, I was on the right track. Just little did I know that I would experience a massive quantum shift and it would like clarify things for me a lot. But so for a while, I felt very fulfilled in that. And I loved what I did so much. And then I got pregnant unexpectedly while I was in the program, and that pregnancy became complicated. And my son Killian was born 3 months prematurely, and he died when he was 20 days old. And so, as you can imagine, like that really changed being a midwife for me. It was very hard. I knew it died. When he died, I knew it died. And I made myself go back and I hated it. And that's how you know you're off track, because I made myself go back and finish. And that wasn't even necessarily the wrong move, but it wasn't in alignment with my soul purpose. And so it's almost like I had found my, like, you're almost there. That's almost the fulfillment of your soul purpose, but you're still tangling it up with money. Like, you're still trying to soothe your sacral and your root chakras through soul purpose, and soul purpose needs to be free of that. So, anyway, that ended. I just walked away from my midwifery job after a year of working as a registered midwife. And I still love all of those things. It's just that is not the career path for me, but it's still part of my soul purpose. What happened was, after Killian died, I went into a gigantic existential crisis, as one does. And through my searching, my like desperate, agonized searching, and like, whatever answer you got for me, universe, fucking lay it on me. Like, I want the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Like, that is it. No matter how painful it is, it cannot possibly hurt more than losing him. So, like, just give it to me. I got to see this. And that, like, pure desire led me to the Akashic Records, activated all of these dormant codes that lived inside of me the whole time. And like, we were off to the races. Now, when I say off to the races, like, there was still a very linear trajectory that I'm still on, of learning how to become that more and more and more all the time, how to be that, how to express it through myself. And like, this is the aligned vehicle for me to make money. So it has become like my soul work, as well as the fulfillment of my soul mission. But they are like, it's part of my soul purpose, but also so is like being here for the babies, and so is just generally sharing the codes and being very creative. And like, everything I learned in art, even though I don't use it as a like a painter anymore, in this season while I have little kids who totally mess with all of my art supplies for sure, um, it still informs the things that I'm creating here in this business. It all weaves in together. And the whole time I was going through my 20s, and all of the like the dumpster fire that was my spiritual awakening, I was fascinated by all these topics, and I was devouring all the books, I was reading all the things, like, that I was already following the path to my soul purpose. I just didn't know that's what it was. And so I couldn't experience the satisfaction, because I had these illusions of like, you know, that it can't be something as simple as that. It can't just be what I love. It can't be something that like I'm already interested in, and gives me so much joy whether I get paid for it or not. And then, like, how do I pay my rent? How do I pay my bills? Blah 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 blah. How do I make people proud? The huge, huge, huge barrier of like, what will everybody in my life think about me if I come out of the closet and start talking about spiritual things on the internet? Like, all that kind of stuff, right? So I didn't, like, it was always living inside me. The barriers were just ideas that I had about what any of it is, what any of it means. So, to recap, my sole purpose is primarily to spread codes, which is pretty much all of our sole purpose. At this time, I mainly spread them through my voice. I can also spread them through eye contact, through my heart and my hands. And like, a subset of this is that I love to teach. I carry a strong teacher professor archetype. I love to speak. I love to chat and have conversations. I love to have like, you know, like bantery, funny, light conversations. I love to have long, deep, intimate conversations. I love to engage and entertain people. I love to listen and like really see people and take in what other people are verbally sharing. I love to learn things through verbal sharing of information. Another subset is that like I still love babies, pregnancy. Oh my God, you tell me you're pregnant, you tell me you're trying to conceive, you tell me that you just had a baby. Like I will talk your freaking ear off about it. Anything you want to talk about. You tell me that you just gave birth. I'll ask you how it went, and I want to know, and I want to know all the details, and I want to like spend hours talking to you about it and unraveling it with you. Like it's just in me. It's there. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, yeah. Along the journey of discovering and activating my soul purpose, I also had to live through specific experiences in order to anchor in and embody certain perspectives that allow me to like truly radiate my soul purpose. So, like, sometimes I had lessons to learn, and sometimes I had to learn them the hard way in order to really get it. And I had to feel the shame and the regret and whatever other uncomfortable feelings are associated with it on my path to developing necessary qualities like humility and having a sense of cause and effect and a sense of consequence so that I understand what what I can do, like not just like, oh my God, what I can do, but understanding that because I'm coded to be a speaker, my words carry a lot of weight. And to really know that, and to really know that I have to be selective and intentional about those words, because I know, especially as a Scorpio, I can say things that like hurt people deeply. And I don't ever want to do that. So I kind of had to learn that the hard way. And that's been part of my soul purpose too. And then also, like, I've had to live through hard things, as all of you have had to do, in order to bring healing and completion around a trauma or a wound or an inherited pattern in my energy body. All of that is part of soul purpose, all of it. You know, sometimes we're living through things that we inherited that aren't even our wound, but part of our soul purpose is to participate in the healing of like intergenerational trauma, or like, something like that, a lineage wound, an ancestral wound. And I'm also here to gently receive healing in this life, like to receive love and to receive blessings and friendship and support and like all the good things in life, and to let that nourish me and replenish me. That is part of a collective healing process too. That is part of the fulfillment of my soul purpose. And I'm here to be part of the collective awakening. So before birth, I chose to come here and be highly visible as a lighthouse, um, as a beacon, one of many that are calling in souls who are returning to their remembering. And this, I would say, is more of a soul mission piece, because it's like an active doing part. So that's kind of the nutshell process of how I found my soul journey. It was really apparent in who I am, in what I wanted to do and spend my time talking about and thinking about. And the big blocks were like basically like severe money wounds, wounds around self-worth, wounds around trying to fit in and trying to like, make somebody proud, what the ideas of success are, all of that false matrix stuff. It's just an interference. So for you, practical tips and exercises to uncover your own soul purpose, and like, I'll say basically like find it. If you don't know what it is, I'm sure even just in listening to me, you're already having bells go off. But if you're still kind of like, but I don't know, then I really love the process of meditation and contemplation. And when I say meditation, I mean like I mean this as a person who doesn't meditate regularly and it still gets a billion downloads all day, every day. I am like all about having an intentional practice. I think it's very grounding and very beneficial. And I just acknowledge that there are some seasons of life where it just feels so busy and so chaotic and hectic that we don't have the time to create a practice. And I really believe and have shown myself that just the intention of having a dope meditation is enough. So when I meditate, I personally tend to listen to either one of the ones that I've created, But more often, I listen to Morning Meditation by Joe Dispenza. Don't know why. It just does it for me. It's like the perfect length. It's like just over 2 minutes or 20 minutes long, like 22 or 23 minutes. So it feels doable, but that's long enough to like get into a groove space. And I don't know, like I think it's the music or something. Like I've long since stopped listening to his prompts or following his prompts, but it's like, I don't know, it's just very conducive, at least for me, to be able to tap into an alpha state or a theta state or something, like some other state other than beta, where my subconscious mind can just bring forward knowings that it already has. And that meditation may not work for you. Joe Dispenza's meditations are freaking weird. They weird me out, but that one just works for me. I don't know why. But the point is that you can just kind of like chill and listen to something that brings you into a nice state. And I think the key is to not demand your subconscious to perform, but just like go into it with the belief that something you know whatever, like something cool is going to come up, even if it's just you feel good for 20 minutes. And then sometimes, of course, inevitably we have meditations that like fail, meaning you can't get into the groove. There's just something that's bothering you and you can't set it aside or whatever. But it doesn't matter. It's just like, I don't know, it's kind of that saying, like you miss 100% of the goals you don't, the shots you don't take. That's it, right? Anyways, but I also really love moving meditation, things like breath work, like yoga, breath work, walking, um, anything that gets your energy moving and helps to take your focus off of the sitting session. If the sitting session like activates your monkey mind too much and it's just too frustrating. And then contemplation. I think the reason I get downloads all the time is because in the background, I'm just thinking about this 100% of the time. I'm thinking about this and how to I'm just learning about business, just learning how to run a better business and create a better business and do the things that I want to do all the time. That's literally all I'm thinking about ever. Cooking dinner, thinking about this. Doing the laundry, thinking about this. Like, you know, I really think that's a huge doorway to letting information in. And then looking back on the story of your life and seeing all the clues. Like for with that boyfriend that I had, it was just so obvious to me. It was obvious in his astrology, in his energy, but also like he's happiest when he goes camping. He's happiest when he's hiking, when he's outdoors. He spends all of his money at Mountain Equipment Co-op. It's not rocket science. Like really following what lights you up is, I know it sounds annoying. It sounds frustrating. And the reason it sounds frustrating is because a lot of the time we have bills to pay or we have like those other false matrix layers of programming that feel like, but I can't just do that. It can't be that simple, but it is that simple. And then obviously, like my main modality, if you could call it that, or my method, I prefer to call it that way. My doorway is the Akashic Records. Just could never, ever recommend the Akashic Records highly enough. If it's for you, you know it's for you. You just hear the words and you're like, ooh, I want to know more. If you're in my world, probably it's for you. And then also, obviously, getting a reading from somebody. Or joining a program or working with a soul purpose based mentor to help tease out the information that is in your blind spot, the things that you can't see about yourself. But it really is that simple. It really, really is that simple. It's in you. It is you. You are this. You are your soul purpose. The main things is like that the main thing to focus on is like the purity of your being in the absence of the like, what do I do for money? And the what do I do for I don't know, like what it's like the question of how do I make money? How do I do this? All from a very human false matrixy perspective like that is going to block you from seeing your soul purpose, but it's already there. You're already doing it all the time. You're already doing it. You are a star seed. You're here to emanate codes. You carry truth codes within you. Those codes are very powerful. They're very needed. They reprogram the simulation. Just do that. Just do it. You're already doing it. The question on how to make money, totally different topic. That is not what this masterclass is about, but that is an important topic too. So, okay. Oh my gosh, I talked for so long. Okay. I guess I'll recap again. I wanted to go into a deep dive, but I think I'm just going to make another masterclass about it, so that, especially soul code, because there's so much there. But the concepts of soul purpose versus soul mission versus soul work versus soul code, so helpful to even have that distinction. So your soul purpose is the overarching reason for your existence. It includes the things that you receive through being alive. It's like, sometimes I like to think about it as like, yeah, I didn't really make this connection earlier, but like I've thought about it before. I find that the answer to your soul purpose is actually more typically found in your earth star. If you're a chakra person, it's found in your earth star chakra, which is the one below your root chakra. Because it's like, what is the agreement you made with your mother? And the earth is your mother. Why are you here with her? Why did you come to be with her? What is your reason for coming back into a body again this time? And the reason is like, what you're here to do, what you're here to share, who you're coded to be, but also the healing you are meant to experience and participate in, the lessons that you are meant to learn, like the frequencies you are meant to receive, the overall contribution. Like there's so many pieces of it. Like, why are you here? It is the navel, it is the cord that connects you to your mother. Why are you here? It anchors you to the earth. And then your life mission is like this, the doing, the action, the specific goals. Like, why am I here? What am I supposed to achieve? What am I supposed to do? And it feels like an outward push. And your soul work is the sacred work that you do to get paid. That is an expression of your soul purpose and your soul code. And your soul code is the unique blueprint of your soul's characteristics and qualities. So like everything from your past lives, your karma, your soul contracts, your soul purpose, your gifts, your mission, like it's all of it. Your soul code is all of it. So final thing I want to say before I just go into answering any questions that have come up is that I really feel with this Lionsgate portal, like massive starseed full mission activations incoming. And in particular, I feel that they are like, we're having this mass level activation of the code keepers. So similarly to everything I've been saying, it's like the acknowledgement that you keep and carry codes that are in alignment with the truth around that thing, but it doesn't have to be something you understand. It's more like a way that you are. Like it's not necessarily that you have to communicate it the way I do in a teaching format, but like, for example, somebody could have divine codes with animal communication, and they really are not here to teach it to anybody directly, but the way that they communicate with animals is like a realignment process for the collective, but they are the ones that are showing how to do it. They are like the example that is demonstrating, oh, how animal and human communication can actually be. So that's just an example. So the code keepers are being activated into self-awareness of themselves in this role. And then the game makers. So the game makers are the ones who understand the bigger picture, understand the false matrix, like the machinations of like, the false matrix overlaid over top of the beautiful organic matrix, how like creation and manifestation works, and like the whole game. And so it's like, on the outside we designed the game, and now we're on the inside and we are like correcting the game. Like we brought in sort of the like the game maker consciousness to rewire the game. And then the grid workers are the ones who are here to really like be a lightning rod on the earth, to do healing on the earth, repatterning on the earth, like realign like ley lines and reactivate natural organic grid points with their presence. A lot of the times grid workers are called to travel, but I'm a grid worker and I'm called to anti-travel. I'm in the location I'm supposed to be, and I am like a guardian of multiple portals here. I don't even necessarily know where they are. I'm not supposed to know where they are. I'm just supposed to be here and like create a shield and a field with my presence. And there's something about me being here that helps to bring down cosmic consciousness and anchor it onto this spot on the earth. So you can be all of those, you can be one of those, you can be any combination thereof, but these are soul missions that are really powerfully coming online right now. Okay, I'm going to go into the questions. And so Raven, you said, would knowing your soul code help answer the question of who am I rather than why am I here? Yeah, your soul code is, yeah, it's ultimately who am I through all these different like threads of like, who am I through the thread of my karma? Who am I through the thread of my full journey and the past lives and the like parallel lives and things like that that I've had? Who am I through my soul contracts that I am, you know, that I carry in this life and other lives? Who am I through my gifts? Who am I through my soul purpose? Who am I through my soul mission? It's a great distinction. Thank you for sharing that, Raven. Ashley says, such a great feeling to know my worth. Awesome. Megan, is sending Reiki codes? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like sending any kind of high frequency light energy is absolutely sharing codes. Like I know I don't really work with people in person right now, but I know that my palms are super open. I have healing hands, and that like when the time is right, I'll just be, I don't know, like I often get visions of doing sort of like activations over top of people, holding the most recent one was holding my hands in front of somebody's throat and clearing out a bunch of gunk. That's like, Reiki is absolutely an example of code. Brooke, I am not a projector in human design. I am a manifesting generator. It's dragging me, I'm telling you. Sometimes I wish I could just be a generator so I could just like do one thing at a time. Brian Scott is another good one for meditating. Brianna says, awesome. And Brooke says, Soul 33 meditation app is amazing. Focused on evolving your soul. She sells the full version of the app directly, but you can find the limited version in the app store. And she has a weekly energy message. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Brooke. Does anybody else have any other questions now that I'm through the whole like spiel and shebang? I probably have time for a couple questions. Oh, somebody said, if we are somebody who feels very multi-passionate and often have a hard time picking a path, does this make it harder to find a soul purpose, or does it mean it is likely also in many directions? Yeah, Maddie, I mean, that is why the manifesting generator life is dragging me, because it is hard. Like I'm so multi-passionate and I want to move in a billion different directions all the time. I just get ideas all the time. And that was a big barrier for me. When I was younger, it was hard to pick a path. The two Bach flower remedies that helped me get over that were clematis and is it oat straw or wild oat? Regardless, it was the oat one and the clematis one. And so it was very, very helpful in helping me to just pick a path. But I think the reason that in my 20s I struggled with it so much was because I was like so traumatized around money and like, my God, what am I going to do for money? How am I going to make money? So there was this pressure of like, which path do I make to choose to make money? And if I'm choosing that one to make money, like I had this real prison consciousness around money. So like, I didn't want to lock myself into a job or a career that I hated. And that's what I understood making money to look like, because that's the only example I had seen. I mean, my dad loved being a teacher, but he also like was just very practical and neutral about it. Like it was a good job for him, but I wouldn't say it was like he was super passionate about it. You know what I mean? But everybody else hated their job. So that made it hard to pick a path because I was really afraid of picking the wrong path and hating what I was doing. And then also, I had this really strong sense of like pressure to perform. So it's like I wasn't letting myself, like I knew what I wanted to do. I just wasn't letting myself do it because I didn't think it was valid and I didn't know how, like, what my parents would think or whatever stuff. And so that was causing me to feel scattered way more than I needed to necessarily. Um, yes, Ash, I can totally put that in the chat. So the flower remedies are clematis, and I think it was wild oat, but regardless, it's just whatever one has oat in it. Yeah, thanks, Abby. Okay, so but I'll say as a manifesting generator, because now I'm doing better and like I've picked a path, and it's just a fact of getting used to having a million ideas and being passionate about everything. And I've noticed that really, like, now, luckily, I don't care about what anybody thinks about what I'm choosing. And it took a long time for me to get over that. Now, what helps me to pick a path is if I actually think about what it's going to take to bring that into reality, do I have the time and energy right now to do it? So it might be a great idea, but I won't have the time or energy until later. Brooke, anything to do to maximize the Lionsgate portal? I'm ready for these activations to give me more awareness. I mean, well, first of all, Brooke, I am hosting a 3-day live Lionsgate activation around the code keepers, the game makers, and the grid workers. But just like bringing in the starseed consciousness codes through this portal. So that's going to happen August 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I will send you information about that, like to all of you. And if you, I mean, like, apart from that, I feel like whatever we can do to unplug as much as we can from the false matrix is like the best thing. So for some people, that will be like, I don't know, like smoking some weed or something. For some people, it will be going out in nature. For some people, it will be like going on a trip and like taking yourself out of your routine. It's like whatever like disengages your consciousness from the like that we're always stuck in. Like it's that blocks us from getting all the information that's always there and accessible to us. So kind of creating your own portal is what I'm trying to say. Cynthia, thank you. Can you clarify what a code is? Yeah, okay. I try for Instagram. I'm so bad at summarizing these things, but I try. So a code is like a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole entire answer, it's a piece. And so when you have, like, when I say you have codes within you, it's like you carry various pieces of the puzzle, the greater puzzle of the original, like, organic, divine template of humanity. Humanity on the micro level, and then like this whole realm on the macro level, because we're all like, it's all integrated. So say for example, somebody could carry really powerful health codes, and they just like understand what, like, how to achieve health, not through a method, not through a certification that they took. Like they just understand the complex matrix of health and how to support somebody in um, aligning with health, or and they usually have lived it out for themselves. Or what's another example? Somebody could carry, oh, I'll tell you an example, a real life example. The other day I was working at my new store, and this woman came in, and we just started having a conversation, and she's like, she's invented this whole line of dental products that are meant to feed your teeth and your gums and all the structures inside of your mouth so that your own cavities can heal themselves. And I always knew that was possible. I've always hated the dentist. I just hate mainstream dental paradigm. Like it's just the worst. It's obviously false matrix bullshit. Hate it. And yet I've found like Weston A. Price, but it's not my code. Do you know what I mean? Like I've gone down that line a little bit, but it's her code. So she is able to give me that code so that I am expanded now with that. Like it's her innate soul purpose to research all of that and develop these products and be able to communicate it so that I can receive those codes. And then this is what I mean. Like we light up the grid. Like now I have that puzzle piece. And so like I can start implementing it with myself and my children, etc. And this is how we sort of rewire the whole entire matrix. Raven, you said, I know this is a loaded question, but what is your favorite way to develop questions before you go into the Akashic Records? My favorite, I've shared this so many times and I always feel so irresponsible when I do, but I love reading the Akashic Records for myself when I'm driving. And I do not ever do it when I'm driving on busy roads. I live in a rural area where a lot of the time there's nobody else on the road or very few vehicles. And I've never got my eyes closed. I've always got my eyes open. The reason that it works for me is because a significant portion of my consciousness is completely focused on the task of driving. And then that frees up the psychic part of me because it's almost like I call it the bouncer, the ego mind filter that is tasked with keeping me alive. That's the part that is blocking out the psychic information all the time because its job is to categorize everything. Like we are surrounded by information all the time and it's categorizing it in terms of like what is safe, what is necessary, what is bullshit, what's a distraction. And it filters out everything that it tags with those like, those tags. So when that part of me is focused on driving, the psychic part of me doesn't have to deal with it. So I just talk out loud to myself. I just frame the question and I'll just ask the question that's on my heart. And then within myself, I feel like, oh, that's not really what I mean. Or like I'll feel the need to clarify it. And I just talk it out loud to myself until I get to that spot where it's like, I've nailed it. That's what I really want to know. And that's the powerful question. And then from there, I just keep channeling through my voice and I just speak out loud to myself the information that comes through. Sometimes it comes through with a slightly different cadence and rhythm. But most importantly, I can just feel that it's like, oh, like, right. Like my conscious mind didn't see it that way before. So that's the takeaway I want you to take away from that answer is not to read the Akashic Records while you're driving, especially not while you're just learning. It is to find an activity that distracts your body and your mind enough, and it's quite a mundane, repetitive task that filter is no longer focused on your effort to connect with the Akashic Records. And then from there, like just ask your question to yourself and workshop it until you get to the like, it just feels like a powerful charge. Like, oh, that's the game changing question. Amanda, you said, how can one get around the block of I'm just a mom while being home raising kids, trying to find my path after many years of raising little ones? Well, I mean, raising kids is a huge soul purpose. It's such sacred work. Like it is possibly, I mean, I'll say it's the most sacred work, but that's not everybody's a parent. And I don't want to take away from not being a parent, but it is like among the most sacred work that we could possibly do. And I'm sure that's occurred to you before, but I want to reiterate it that like you are doing God's work on earth when you raise children with the most presence you can possibly bring. And I don't I don't know if I could only be home with my kids. Like I vacillate. Sometimes I just wish I could just 100% be like I wish that my husband could provide and pay all the bills and so I could just completely be devoted to my children, but I think I would honestly probably still be podcasting because it is even if I didn't have to make any money from it because it's just part of my soul purpose. It's part of my mission. Like, I have to broadcast in this way. So, because I don't have a husband that can pay all the bills, I've also like healed a bunch of my money shit and allowed myself to receive money to support my family through this vehicle. But I would be doing it even if I didn't need to make money. And I would also be talking to other pregnant women all the time. And like, even I do that right now without making any money for it. So I would say look at the things that you just like you love, and give yourself an outlet for that. Like, let it channel somewhere, let it go somewhere, whatever it may be. Heidi, you said, I'm acknowledging that I'm receiving light codes via clouds. Do I just need to allow time and surrender in order to receive actual downloads? Right now, it's basically just confirmations. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does make sense for sure. I would say, like, definitely allowing ourselves time for it just to like drop in and unfold and make sense, and not needing it to like needing ourselves to understand the full deeper meaning of it right away. But also, you can also work with symbols and your ability to interpret symbols in order to improve your skill at like understanding and decoding the meaning of things that feel abstract and not like obvious and overt. Oh, Cynthia. It's Taylor. Oh, okay. Thanks everybody. I'm so glad that this masterclass has served you. Yeah, the thing, I think the big takeaway that I want you to understand is how amazing you are. You are full of magic. You are full of beauty. You are full of like such truth codes that are needed, and it's already in you. You're already being that. It's a matter of giving yourself permission to do it, starting to realize and acknowledge the value of what you're already contributing by being here, and then letting it reveal itself to you. Like, is this the vehicle that wants to be like um partnered up with money so that money can come into your life? Is this something that you just want to do just for the sake of doing it? But your soul purpose is all already within you. Okay, my friends. I have to go and pick up my children. I'm going to send obviously an email out with the replay for you. Just be a little extra patient with me because, as I said, May is on holiday right now. So it's just me. But I'm also going to send out the information about the Lionsgate portal 3-day activation, as well as a couple of different like options if you want to take this further. And if you want, like, for example, I have a group Akashic reading in early August that there are only a few spots left. So if you want to be able to ask a question in the Akashic Records, it's an amazing and like, as far as my readings go, like very affordable way of getting like deeper personalized answers and just other resources to support you in uncovering your soul purpose. Okay, I love you guys so much. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you for being here. Bye, everybody.